Do you ever remember coming home from school and putting on the television and catching an episode of The Simpsons? An episode in one of those early seasons where the animation still looked hand-drawn and every joke still landed. Do you remember that as the sun set outside of your house and the night began to draw in, so would it also in the world of The Simpsons? The town of Springfield transported from day to night. I remember this like it was yesterday, and I remember these nighttime scenes of Springfield being so alluring. A place that is at once familiar but also ethereal, almost otherworldly, in all of its cozy blue, purple and mauve hues and glowing neon signs. Why does The Simpsons make us feel this way? Is it just nostalgia for old 90s animation? Or is there something deeper, something more nuanced and intrinsic to the world that Marge, Homer, Bart, Lisa and Maggie inhabit? A world that just doesn't exist anymore. Why was Springfield, especially Springfield during the night, such a vibe? Now seasons 3 through 9 are widely considered to be the golden age of the show, so this takes us all the way from 1991 to 1998, which, as we will see later in this video, is very important. I personally have real fond memories of these years, coming home from school and turning on the television and catching The Simpsons at 6 p.m. You see, in the UK, the show didn't start airing on terrestrial television until 1996. And even then, episodes shown on BBC Two could be delayed by up to 2 years from their original US broadcast. So for us here in the UK, the golden age ended up being prolonged all the way into the new millennium.
New house. Okay. We're through the looking glass here, people.
Watching these episodes, I always found myself drawn to the layout and geographical connectivity of Springfield, the large, stateless US town in which The Simpsons live. Its colourful blend of urban and rural intensely resonated with me. And whilst the show has a floating timeline, where for example Marge and Homer's youth seems to have stretched all the way throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, Springfield also seems to have a floating geography, where the town can magically transform itself depending on the context of the current joke.
I did it! I walked all the way to Moe's from my house!
Way to go, Dad!
At times, Springfield looks as if it could be a suburban town orbiting a larger American city. Other times it feels more like a true city in itself, complete with a busy downtown populated by skyscrapers. You see, Springfield isn't really a place, but more of an idea, a snow globe of 20th century America. Every facet of Western culture has a home in Springfield. Democracy, authority, felony, institutions, protest, sexuality, the entertainment industry, war, and most importantly, capitalism, something the show often explores.
Money fight!
This isn't America, but a memory of America, a place where local radio exists, people know their neighbours, small businesses thrive, and kids roam freely.
This town is a part of us all. A part of us all. A part of us all. Sorry to repeat myself, but it'll help you remember.
The Simpsons' hometown had so much character, in fact, that the season 7 episode, 22 Short Films About Springfield, was originally written as a pilot episode for a potential spin-off series titled Springfield Stories, and that would focus entirely on Springfield and its residents. The idea never came to fruition, but the town's core qualities remained. The great locations and outlets that we've come to know over the years, such as Moe's, the Quickie Mart, the Android's Dungeon, the Aztec Theatre, Krusty Burger, all have a human face tied to them. You see, in a world of self-service machines, mindless automated ordering and online shopping, Springfield very much retains its strong sense of community. Its recurring civic life means that when a town hall meeting is called, the same usual faces show up. This sense of community, of being part of a larger society, underpins many of the feelings I have towards Springfield. It's part of the reason why that once the sun goes down and the street lamps flicker on, there's a palpable sense of coziness, a warmth in the air. Despite all of the town's dysfunction, Springfield really does settle down during the evening, and there is this comforting sense that life is continuing just beyond the frame.
Game? What's a game? Oh, a game.
Now, going beyond the feeling that Springfield gives off, I want to go beyond this and look at how this is achieved on a technical level. The golden age of The Simpsons has an art style quite dissimilar from what we got later in the show's life. While more developed than those first two seasons, there are a few characteristics that really set these mid to late 90s episodes apart. The art was initially hand-drawn, with layouts, key animation and poses being created in the United States before being shipped out to South Korea, where studios completed the bulk in-between animation, cleanup work and colouring. This finished footage was then sent back to the United States for editing, sound and post-production. The hand-drawn nature of the early days of the show really gave it this tactile feel, with big black thick lines outlining the characters, and cruder, simpler, more expressive backdrops. I've always loved the larger pupils they had in these early seasons, which I always found to be super expressive, and they would frequently go googly-eyed.
Stupid dolphin. You can... Hey!
I also really liked it when characters were rendered in the distance and lost a ton of detail, and would get these super abstracted versions of their designs, which I find rather cute. We also frequently got off-model frames, characters looking a little out of whack from their usual established master designs. Smear frames, which are the frames between movements used to help accentuate motion, gave us moments of idiosyncrasy. This all helped to create the illusion of a show that was somewhat loose and free-flowing. I'm sure many of you, myself included, have a real fondness for the old pre-HD glowing effect used on the show. Light sources would emanate an ethereal glow with neon signs and streetlights illuminated by soft electric colour. The technique used to create this effect is something known as underlighting, and was particularly popular in cartoons and anime during the 1980s. Real-world light was shone through a modified animation cell during the photographing stage of the production process, and this allowed light to spill over the outlines and into the frame. In the case of The Simpsons, it proved especially useful for highlighting fire, which without an underlit glow would just blend into the yellow colour of the character's skin.
Okay.
Older hand-drawn animation techniques extended beyond foreground elements and would often colour the memorable night skies.
Come on, you try it.
No, I couldn't.
Yeah, just breathe slowly and squeeze the...
I hit it!
This was achieved using gouache, acrylic or similar paints on an illustration board, and with these scenes taking place at night, the artists would avoid using the colour black and instead paint the skies with purple, indigo, navy blue or magenta. The spirit of Bleeding Gums Murphy showing up against the mauve sky, the surreal backdrops during Homer's mystical voyage, and Homer sitting on the hood of his car after waving goodbye to his mother, with the added touch of a shooting star just behind the rolling credits, are just a few of the standout nighttime moments from the golden years of the show. But it's during the banality of regular old Springfield, a town asleep in the dead of night, where life still stirs and the painted skies set a wholesome, wistful mood, that a tone was set to be etched into our collective memories for years to come. The 1990s were a very different time compared to today. For the most part, times were pretty good here in the UK and in the United States. I mean, Homer supports a wife, 3 kids, a huge house, and 2 cars, all on a modest wage from the nuclear power plants where he works. But yet he is still routinely seen in the show as unsuccessful, unlucky, and at times even a bit of a loser. Frank Grimes seems to be the only character aware of this, almost as if he's been teleported from our real world into the fictional world of Springfield.
Good heavens! This is a palace! How in the world can you afford to live in a house like this, Simpson?
This is something I guess I'm going to call Simpsons capitalism. And a lot of other 90s shows at the time, such as Malcolm in the Middle and Friends, seem to exist within this economy too. An economy where ordinary people could afford extraordinary things. Even Homer's job at the power plant, where he seems to doss around all day, seems very much like a product of its time. As today I feel that this role would most probably be automated.
Now there's an employee, Smithers. A smile on his lips and a song in his heart. Promote him.
You see, the 90s had this sense of momentum. The Cold War was over, there was strong economic growth here in the West, and there was a keen interest and excitement over rapidly developing new technology. The official song of the Labour Party's 1997 election campaign was "Things Can Only Get Better," and for much of the Anglosphere, it really did feel that way. There was an optimism in the air, a real sense of enthusiasm for the future and what it could hold, a belief that tomorrow would be better than today. When we look back at Springfield and its nocturnal vistas, we aren't just simply remembering The Simpsons, we're remembering the larger context from which the show emerged. We are recalling a future as imagined from the 1990s, a future that never quite arrived. The future has disappeared without seeming to have realised itself. In the decades that followed, the mood changed, and the political Overton window shifted to the extreme. Institutions became diminished, underfunded and undersubscribed, and the economy was hit hard by the 2008 financial crash and subsequent crises. The technology that we once held in high hopeful reverence began to intrusively creep into our everyday lives. The future that we once imagined as a shared destination began to feel fragmented and uncertain. Nostalgia is the defining emotion of our age. This is the central thesis of Grafton Tanner's book, The Hours Have Lost Their Clock. He argues that nostalgia isn't just a personal feeling anymore, but a political, economical, and cultural force that shapes how we experience the present. When we see these images of Springfield, we feel a yearning not just for the old sensibilities of the show, or for its beautifully dreamlike purple skies, but for something much larger, a deep nostalgia for a time now gone. A world of local radio stations, bowling alleys, corner shops, and neighbourhood bars. A world where communities felt tangible, where the future seemed open, and where the distant lights of tomorrow suggested that something better might still be waiting just around the corner. I personally feel that this is why images of old shopping malls, abandoned arcades, swimming pools, or even spaces like the backrooms resonate so strongly with people of a certain age. They aren't simply reminders of the past, they're reminders of a particular relationship that we had to the future. They evoke a time when these spaces felt permanent, like they seemed destined to remain part of our everyday life indefinitely. It's why the glowing windows of Springfield feel so strangely affecting. They paint a world that feels simultaneously familiar yet unreachable, asleep at night yet alive, not because it has vanished entirely, but because the assumptions and values that underpin it have slowly eroded. The abstracted capitalism of an Amazon fulfillment centre doesn't really conjure the same feelings as, say, King Tut's music store or the Leftorium. One is a system, and the other is a place.
Hey, this isn't such a great prize. Oh well, this may be a dirty job, but the big guys at the top work even harder.
Now, whilst I don't think that we're all yearning for an anti-capitalist world, I do think many of us desire a form of capitalism that is less aggressive, a system closer to that of Simpsons capitalism, where a hard day's work at the power plant can still support a family, and local institutions remain woven into everyday life. Perhaps that's why Springfield at Night continues to resonate with us decades later. It takes us back not just to a good 22 minutes of television, but to a world that felt comprehensible, connected, honest, and fair.
Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset.
The night is now starting to break into morning, and the darkness is peeling back as long shadows begin to stretch across the asphalt. The sun rises over Springfield as a new day is born. Marge starts preparing breakfast, Bart and Lisa get ready for school, and Homer begins making his way to the nuclear power plant.
So long, suckers!
By morning, or by the following episode, the world is reset once again, and the familiarity of Springfield begins over. The same, but somehow new. These nighttime images of Springfield are entwined not only with memories of the golden age of a great TV show, but with our own nostalgia for a world now just remembered. This is why Springfield was such a vibe. It showed us a world with a strong moral and social fabric, with a deeply human touch. It's what makes the new episodes of the show seem so uncanny, where we get these locations and characters that we love, but seemingly stripped of all the visual oddities and imperfections that made them feel so warm, so wholesome. As we pass through noon and into the evening, the lights again switch on, and that feeling sets in. That feeling that this version of Springfield is still out there, waiting for night to fall once again. If you enjoyed this video and love Springfield as much as I do, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of similar videos like this which explore really specific niches within popular culture. And a big shout out to all of the members over on the Patreon. Thank you so much. And with that said, thanks again for watching. I will see you all real soon.